So, very recently, I had finished my journey of playing through Silent Hill 2 for the very first time. For years now, many, and I mean many people have always told me that Silent Hill 2 was a quintessential game that I needed to play. Right up there with other popular games that I'm sure people have said that you need to play. Games like Metal Gear Solid or Shadow of the Colossus. Hey, guess which one I haven't played yet? Spoiler, it's not Shadow of the Colossus. Point being, Silent Hill 2 was always up there on that list. In fact, it was probably my most requested game that I should play by my friends. So after a year of periodically going back to the game, I can finally say that all this wait was very much worth my time. Now I will say right here, in order to drive my point home in any game that I'll cover in this kind of series, I will have to go into spoiler territory since it'll help drive my point home a little bit more. So, Silent Hill 2, it's a pretty good game. I mean, the internet has probably already told you that at this point, but the question I always had on my mind is, why? Why does this game get the praise that it does from almost every single gamer I've ever come into contact with? Well, after playing this game, I feel like it comes down to three main points: setting, story, and a third thing that I like to call interpretation. The third point is the one I think is the most important one, but we'll get there when we get there. So first, let's look at the setting. The setting to Silent Hill 2 is creepy, bar none. You can only see what's in front of you, and the only time you ever know that something is near is when that little radio goes off. And sometimes you may not even see that coming. And when you get out of N64 draw distance land and enter the world of Silent Hill, you'll find it's some of the most weirdest rooms that you'll ever see in gaming. But it's how the game uses these settings that makes the game stand above the rest. See, the game makes it so that its setting plays an important part of the story. What I mean is, Silent Hill is a mysterious place, and the character you play as, Mr. James here, is just as confused of this place as we are, making it so you have to explore to a certain extent, and the fact that you're not too sure what can be lurking ahead makes it a very exciting world to run through. The characters in Silent Hill 2 are, how can I say this, pretty fucked up. I know that may be pretty bare bones in terms of explanation, but really, they are pretty messed up. The simplest way I can explain it is this: everyone that you see in Silent Hill are there for a reason. They've all been called there, and it's for a reason that they don't really go into. Well, they do, but they also don't. We'll get there in just a minute. So basically, everyone you see here in Silent Hill does have a reason for being here, which is something I haven't really seen in games of this variety. Sure, you have main characters like Jill or Chris, and sometimes you have supporting characters like good old Barry in Resi 1, but what Silent Hill 2 does differently is that these characters are somewhat real. They face real problems that can be found in real life, and it gives them more of a breath of life that most horror games that I played in recent years just haven't done for me. Also, short little tidbit, I'm not putting down Resi 1's cast. I actually really like Resi 1 as a whole. I'm just saying. But all that said, those two reasons are not the quintessential reason why I think this game stands out. No, that goes to my third reason as to why this game stands out, and that is interpretation. It may not be the best word, but it's the word I'm going to use. But let's go see. Now, like I said, the third and most important part of the game, and my personal favorite part of the game for me, is the interpretation as to what the hell is actually going on in this game. There's one scene that I really want to talk about, and after me and my uncle played this game together and talked about this scene, I came to the conclusion which was the same as his. This was my favorite scene in the game, and it's the one we're going to be focusing on this main part. The scene I'm talking about focuses on a character named Angela. Angela is a character that you meet in the beginning of the game. You will learn that she is looking for her mother and that she has been called to Silent Hill, much like James and the other characters have been. After some progression into the story, you will run into her again, and it's in one scene that is pretty grotesque. Now, this portion of the video will go into some adult material, so please watch at your own discretion. Essentially, you find her in a room that looks like it belongs to a small girl. Well, the Silent Hill version anyway. Before entering the room, you'll hear her scream against her father. When entering the room, you fight a boss. It kinda looks like a monster lying underneath a bed or something. After beating the enemy, she shoves you away and expresses how essentially someone had done things to her. Probably her dad, based on what she said before. These things were... I mean, yeah, you can probably guess what I'm trying to hint at. And it happened to her when she was a little girl, no less. I'll go into the room itself a little bit more, but for now I want to focus on my favorite scene in the game, the last encounter with Angela. You meet her on a staircase which is set ablaze. She stands in front of what seems to be the monster that you fought the last time you met. It's here where she describes that she feels like she deserved all the things that had happened to her, even saying that her mother told her the same thing. Basically, in the long run, her father, as I said before, did kind of do things to her when she was little. She says that nothing can heal her now. As she ascends the staircase, James expresses that, wow, it's hot as hell in here. She replies that she sees this everywhere she goes. And that's the end of that. She just leaves after that. So why do I think this one scene incorporates everything I love about this game? Well, it's simple. Because every accusation and thing that I have mentioned thus far is never really directly told to us, the player, yet it kind of is. As I mentioned before, the room is almost the first major hint you get as to what happened to her as a child. The monster you fight, like I said, is like a monster under the bed. The classical story of the thing that a child fears. The monster under the bed. The boogeyman. And the one thing that Silent Hill does best is crafting those fears into actuality. In her case, her monster under the bed, aka her father. And of course, there's what she says to you, the player, as well, like he used to. Even her ending speech pretty much explains about what happened without full detail. But we don't really need it because we already somewhat have those details. And the last part of that scene, in simplicity, is her descension or ascension into hell. And the fire that she sees, it's simply a way of saying that after all she faced in her past, all she can see is a world on fire. A literal hell always around her. This to me is why Silent Hill 2 is such a brilliant game. Everything that I have said is all based as to what I have experienced throughout the game, without it directly telling me. One of the things that I learned in my cinema courses at college is a simple thing. Show, don't tell. Essentially, take what the last Airbender movie did and then do the opposite of that. That is what this game does best. Rather than berate you with dialogue and explain to you what's going on in the game itself, it instead shows you and lets you interpret what's going on yourself, letting the player come up with his or own understanding as to what's going on in the game. Silent Hill 2 was a game I thought I was going to, at the very least, enjoy, but by the end of it, it became so much more. It became more of an experience rather than just a game I had beaten on my shelf, because of all these things that I have encountered. Also, the soundtrack is atmospheric as hell. It's no wonder why people regard it as the best horror game of all time, and at this point, I do consider it my favorite horror game that I've ever played. But it's much more than that. It's something that challenges the formula of gaming and the players that play it. I'm glad I waited this long to play this game. I probably wouldn't have loved it as much as I would have as a kid. With amazing atmosphere and characters that breathe life into the very story itself, along with a soundtrack that fits oh so well, Silent Hill 2 is a game that is definitely not like many others that I have ever played, and it's truly something that I consider amazing.